We'll call the meeting to order at 9:01 a.m. this morning. Thank you for joining us. Move down. Item B before us, adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question. Is Byron here today to address the delegation F1?
No, Mr. Chairman, through to Councillor Hickey, he's still away dealing with the fires. I think he's in the Fox Creek area. But I'll maybe just say a few words to preface it and then let the delegation member just speak to council if that's okay.
I've seen him on the news last night. Up there.
Okay. Anything else pertaining to the agenda? Mark?
Move the adoption of the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Mark. Mark has moved to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Moving down, item C, adoption of the minutes. Before you have the County Council meeting minutes from May 4th, 2023. Are there any errors, omissions, or any issues arising from the minutes? Claus?
I'll move the minutes of May 4th meeting as presented.
Thank you, Claus. Claus has moved for the adoption of the May 4th, 2023 County Council meeting minutes as presented. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. We do have two time commitments today. We have a public hearing scheduled for 10 a.m. this morning, and we have an 11 a.m. delegation. So with that, we can move down. Item D, subdivision applications. Number 1, subdivision application 2023-0-040-1000824, Alberta Limited. And with that, I would throw it to our Interim Director of Community Services, Hillary Jensen. Hillary.
Thank you, Tori. Thank you. Council, Mr. Chairman. Oh, where's my head this morning? And Council, we just have the one subdivision for today. This is the subdivision related to the area structure plan and rezoning that County Council did approve at the last meeting on May the 4th. This is being for the within the Chinook Industrial Park area structure plan. This particular area, you'll probably see it being advertised probably shortly, if not already. This is going to be called the Frontier Business Park. This is what the applicant has chosen to associate this particular area with that name. With that, the application before you today is to create 9 industrial lots ranging in size from 2.89 acres to 12.6 acres. And there would also be some public utility lots to facilitate the drainage going into the county's existing stormwater management facility. There will be a residual parcel that would be just over 83 acres in size from that northern title, which is currently just under 150 acres. The uses that were approved at the May 4th council meeting were rural general industrial and business light industrial. So if you look on the map here, the rural industrial is the darker purple area, and then that kind of lighter gray area is business, designated for business light industrial. This proposed application does meet all of the area structure plan and the subdivision criteria of the county's land use bylaw. With that, I'll put it over to Steve for the rest of the planning comments and the recommendation.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Council. The application in front of you should be fairly fresh in your mind. As Hillary mentioned, last council meeting dealt with the area structure plan and rezoning application. So this subdivision application is in support of that. The land is currently in agricultural use with no improvements on site. The proposed 5.39 acre lot in the corner there, facing 43rd Street. As Hillary mentioned, that's business light industrial. All the remainder lands will be the rural general industrial. The access to the lots will be from the new internal roadway as part of the plan that aligns with 14th Avenue to the west in the city. And future road extensions will be provided to enable future access to the north part as well as part of the overall area structure plan and subdivision street network. If you remember, in accordance with the ASP that was approved. The lots are to be serviced by city treated water, and no private septic private septic systems or holding pump out tank will be used. There'll be no provision in the public roadways for municipal gravity type of system or any connection to municipal treatment facilities. Since the package was sent out to you for your agenda, at that time we didn't have city elected comments back. We have since received that, and the city in their comments did mention about that if any of the development is connected to the city water system, then an agreement must be in place, that some of the road intersection improvements, corner cuts at 43rd Street, et cetera, need to be addressed. So that will be done through the development agreement, which will be a condition on the subdivision here under approval. As well, that agreement should address all the improvements that are required in each phase of the development, the roads improvements, et cetera, going forward. Overall, if you recall from the area structure plan, the land is relatively flat, but has natural drainage flowing towards southeast. There is a bit of a center break area where some of it flows to the northeast. So as part of the subdivision plan, we'll have some drainage easements registered. There'll be a 10-meter drainage easement registered on the plan that'll be along the south perimeter to go over towards the east. So with that, the application in front of you, what they've submitted overall, it conforms to their structure plan and the amendments that were adopted by council. It conforms with the RGI and the BLI, the Business Light Industrial Land Use Districts, and the lot sizes. So it's in compliance with the bylaw and the policies for that. During the referral here, since the agenda was sent out to you, I've heard back from a couple more of the utility companies that we didn't hear back at the beginning there. So Fortis, ACO Transmission, none of them have any concerns or require any easements at this point. We also have the official response back from Alberta Transportation. They have no concerns or objections to the subdivision. And as well, we got the official comments back from the city as mentioned. So part of this application is that an approval is that the municipal reserve would be payable to the county. It would on this whole Chinook or now Frontier Business Park area as it subdivides out. So in this first phase here, I didn't have the value for you when I sent out for the agenda, but we've since received that back. So as part of an approval of this application, they would be owing to the county municipal reserve on the initial 63.29 acres of this phase. At the market value came back at $50,000 per acre. So that does result in a $316,450 municipal reserve payment to the county. And that's just for this first phase here as it goes along, and then subsequently subdivide, they'd be owing on the additional portions as well. So as part of this is the provision would be on the 63.2 acres, and then we register a deferred reserve caveat on that remnant 83.89 acres, just in case if the developers were ever to sell to another developer or something like that, and they came in the picture later or something like that, they would know that that portion on the residual part hasn't provided yet to the county and be owed at a future subdivision stage. So other than that, there's no objections or concerns received, and due to it conforming to the ASP and the land use bylaw, I have recommended approval to you, and that would be based on the provision of that municipal reserve payment on the 63.29 acres, and then the conditions would be that the taxes are paid up to date, that development agreement is entered into with the county, which is an important aspect of this application. If there were to be that an easement agreement be surveyed and registered on the plan to provide that 10-meter drainage easement on the south perimeter. With the final subdivision plan in accordance with approval be provided. I did have a fifth condition on there, but if all this is captured in the development agreement, we won't need it, but that's just that they pay any applicable off-site levies or fees to the city, for the water and that sort of thing. On the draft there, number 6 is referring to the easements by utility companies, although we've since heard back from all of them, we don't need anything. And the 7 as well is just that Alberta Transportation, any conditions be satisfied, and we've since heard that they don't require anything either, so. So with that, and that recommendation in front of you, I recommend the approval of those conditions.
Thank you, Steve. I'll open up to council. Any questions? Klaus, go ahead.
With this subdivision here, is it, what are the possibilities here that people are gonna split up these parcels again? Is that probably gonna happen?
It, through the chair to Councillor Vanderveen, it's somewhat unlikely. Because the plan that they have, the area structure plan, showed that this was the density for the parcels in this particular area. So I would say that because of the on-site septic and the types of businesses that they're anticipating locating in this particular area being ones that need, say, larger lay-down areas, more outdoor storage opportunities, it would be unlikely. And if they were to want to come in and re-subdivide, say, one of those, maybe the 12-acre lot, we would have to look at the area structure plan to see if it would need to be amended, or if they could just come forward to council for that consideration. But at this point in time, based off of the plan and what the conversations I've had with the developer for this business park, it seems unlikely that there would be subdivision for this area. Further subdivision, sorry, for this area.
Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When we're looking at the subdivision plan, and you'd mentioned that the city is concerned about the corner cuts, so on Lot 1 and Lot 8, there would have to be some adjustments. Is there any concern with us approving that and those corner cuts having to be addressed?
No, not particularly. They wouldn't impact, like, the sizes are large enough to accommodate, say, a 5x5 or 10x10 meter corner cut on each of those parcels. Just kind of similar to what you see kind of going into the road. You see there's that corner cut going into that parcel there. It wouldn't impact the subdivision. This is a tentative plan, so the surveyor would come back with the final subdivision plan that would show those particular, that features for the corner cuts to the 43rd Street.
And Mr. Chair, just further to that, part of that corner cut as well would come off as a city title, because there is a public utility lot, quite hard to see in the picture, but it runs parallel to 43rd Street that the city actually owns. So any corner cut, a portion of it would be coming from the lot, or not just the lot, corner lot there in the Frontier Park plant, but it would come off the city's parcel, because they own a strip of land there. That kind of salmon-y pink color you can see in there. There's a utility that runs all along 43rd Street. It's a parcel owned by the city of Lethbridge, right there.
Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just to go to the municipal reserve, now that it's been set, if they come back to do the balance of the 80 acres, is it at the same rate, or would it be a higher rate, or whatever market value is at that time?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, through Councillor Hickey's question, it's whatever rates at that time. So it'd be probably at least this rate, but it could be more, depending on what the market does, and if they come back in a year or 5 years, that would change. So it's always at the current market assessed value, so.
Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And given all that, I'd like to move that subdivision application 2023-0-040 be approved subject to conditions as outlined in the draft resolution.
Thank you, John. John has moved the recommendation that subdivision application 2023-0-040 be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Thank you. can move down in our agendas. Item G, Department Reports, G1, Finance and Administration, G1.1, Bylaw 23-017, Tax Mill Rate, third reading. With that, we have our Director of Finance, Jennifer Place. Jen, whenever you're ready.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council. So before you, we have the tax rate bylaw 23-017 for third reading as was amended at the May 4th, 2023 County Council meeting. Again, as per the previous meeting, the assessment roll has been prepared for the 2023 tax year per the municipal budget, which was approved on December 15th. With the tax support requirement of $16,675,460 to be collected in order to support the 2023 operations. The additional tax support included for the Lethbridge Regional Waste Services Commission and the Hall Rock Capital Funds for a total of just shy of $18 million. As per the Municipal Government Act, a tax rate bylaw is required to be passed annually, so it enables the property assessment and tax notices to be issued by the county and annual tax levies to be collected. I'm just going to move down here. If council moved down to in the report under the financial impacts portion of the report, you can see what the tax rates for 2023 compared to 2022 look like, and that includes the increase to farmland as proposed in the amended bylaw from the May 4th meeting, with a slight reduction to residential and non-res and machinery and equipment in order to accommodate that change. I don't know if Les has any additions. We did prepare some more documentation, which is included in the report as well, but I don't know if council wants anything brought up with regards to those changes.
Thank you, Jen. Any questions from council? John?
I'd like to move that the 2023 tax mill rate bylaw number 23-017 be read a third time.
Thank you, John. John has moved that the 2023 tax mill rate bylaw 23-017 be read a third time. Is there any discussion? Not, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Thank you, Jen. Thank you very much, Les.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We can move down. G2 Administration, G2.1, Policy 186, Committee Members at Large Remuneration. Jen?
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. So at the April 20th council meeting, there was a discussion with regards to the Ag Services Committee member at large and how and what remuneration should be paid or provided to these committee members at large. So following that discussion, there was direction provided to administration to review the remuneration policy and try to format something similar to council's policy. So we did review council's remuneration policy, and in hindsight, as administration was working through it, we thought it best to develop a policy specific to committee members at large, for two reasons. One being less complicated, I guess, when you're providing that information to the committee members at large, that policy would be just specific to them. And secondly, if and when council wanted to reopen their own council remuneration policy, it would just remain specific to councillors, as well as the reimbursement form then is specific to each of the two policies. So we provided to you in the package policy 186, which is committee members at large remuneration. Within the package, you can see it is laid out very similarly to councils. I know that was the direction, that the rates paid are similar, so we maintain that. And we just didn't name it Ag Services in the event that council decides to have other committee at large members moving forward in the future for different programs. So we stuck with the up to 4 hours half day rate of 4 hours and up to 8 hours being a full day, and over 8 hours, you know, if they're claiming for 1.5 days or something of that nature.
Jen, got a question?
Yeah.
Klaus?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jen, we were like a council when council goes out of area, we were on the 2% increase on that one. Why didn't we do that one with the the same with the members at large.
To Mr. Vanderveen, or Mr. Councillor Vanderveen's question, I just pulled it exactly as it's stated in the policy. We can implement a 2% increase to this, but if you want to amend that before it's approved, if that's what the route council wants to go.
Yes, I would like to amend that, because I think that would be only be fair, because why would the one be treated different than the other one?
The other thing is, I believe the 2%, I'll have to look back, but was for the salaries. I'm not sure it applied to the per diem rate, actually. Just thinking it through now. So council did receive a 2% on the, I'll call it salaries, I guess, the monthly rate, but I don't know that it applied to the per diem. And the travel amount was increased based on the 2023 rate within the policy, though.
But it, for example, the 8 hours was raised to 312.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We can definitely add that then,
Yeah.
if that's council's decision. Okay.
Why don't we let Jen finish? And then
Sure.
we'll-
Okay, so just following through everything else, how the time is calculated on the per diems, just that it will be reviewed by the committee chair to sign off on, and then provided to administration to expense. There's the mileage per kilometer rate. No receipts required for that, but we did base it off of the 2023 rates, which is what is being paid currently, and we'll increase that as if it's changed annually, we'll review. Any claim amounts for additional costs like conference fees, hotels, costs, parking, etc. Same as with council, they just had to provide their receipts and add it to the claim form. Income tax and Canada pension contributions will be deducted from the per diem and mileage rates as per Canada Revenue Agency regulations regarding appointed official positions. So these are considered appointed official positions, and they will receive a T4A at the end of the year if they submit any expenses. And then we just updated, with Candace's help, we updated a form, and we did kind of highlight how this was paid out to them. And as you can see, it's a pretty straightforward form that they can complete for the purposes of their claim.
Eric?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. To Councillor Vanderveen's point, I see the form is updated to the new numbers already, so that's dealt with.
Oh, good, Sarah did do that. That's my mistake, though. I apologize. So I can definitely amend that within the policy.
Any other questions, comments, discussion from council? How would you like to proceed? Claus?
I'll move that County Council approve Policy 186, the committee members at large remuneration.
Thank you, Claus. Claus has moved the recommendation that County Council approve Policy 186, Committee Members at Large Remuneration. Is there any discussion? If not, call a question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Keep moving down in our agenda. G3, Infrastructure, G3.1, Letter of Support, Town of Coaldale Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund Application, DMAF. And with that, we have our Director of Infrastructure, Devin Teely. Good morning, Devin.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Council. I'm here because the Town of Coaldale requested a letter of support for their Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund application. And this has to do with the Malloy Basin drainage projects that many of you are aware of that the county, SMRD and the Town of Coaldale have been working on for many years. And it's mainly obviously to address stormwater drainage issues in and around the Coaldale area. So the Malloy Phase 1 and 2A projects have been completed to date, with Phase 2B identified as the next phase. Since the approval of Phase 2B in the budget, there have been delays to the project beyond the county's control, and due to inflation, we are now having a funding deficit. And this goes back to initially the Town of Coaldale was going to do the engineering on this project with one of their staff members. That staff member did get into an incident where she had to go on an extended leave. She is still not back with the Town of Coaldale, and that did delay the project, in addition to land acquisition taking longer than anticipated. So we did have several meetings with MPE, SMRID, Town of Coaldale, and the grant funding authorities to determine the best solution to move forward. And it was determined that the initial grant funding scope be revised to reduce the overall scope and funding required, and apply for additional funds through DMAF to complete the work removed from that initial scope. So I can just briefly go through what that entails. The initial scope included the redeployment of the raw water reservoirs on the southeast end of Coaldale, the installation of stormwater pipeline, and the construction of a stormwater reservoir at the southeast, or the south end of Coaldale, right by the Cottonwood development. This phase received funding through the Alberta Community Resilience Program and the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program in 2019. The revised scope for 2B includes the redeployment of the raw water reservoirs and stormwater pipelines, and the new scope under this DMAF application would be for the construction of the new stormwater pond at the south end of Coaldale, which is referred to as the South Coaldale Regional Stormwater Management Facility. So we've basically taken 2B, split it up into two components to try and gain more funding leverage. The recommendation at this time is that council approve a letter of support and authorize the Town of Coaldale's application under the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund for the South Coaldale Regional Stormwater Management Facility project on behalf of the Town of Coaldale, Lethbridge County, and the St. Mary River Irrigation District. And this will enable all three parties to potentially have access to additional grant funds to help offset price escalations. And with that, I will turn it back to council for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Devin. Klaus, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What are the chances that they are going to be able to get the grant?
I honestly don't know at this time what the chances are. We were successful for the Horsefly Spillway project in getting DMAF funding. It was a very long, painful process to get that funding, but they were able to. So to give you some odds, I couldn't at this time. We're just hopeful we do get that funding.
And another question. So is there a plan B?
Well, regardless of the outcome of this, I'm going to talk to the CAO of the Town of Coaldale and the GM of SMRID, but I want to hold a steering committee meeting with those members of council that are on that committee to go through the implications of that scenario. If we get funding, what are we going to do? If we don't get funding, what are we going to do? We thought it was prudent to apply for funding because there's no harm in applying, and you don't necessarily have to do the project even if you get the funding. But we want to get this going in advance so we could kind of fast track this application.
Thanks, Devin. Any other questions? John, go ahead.
I assume we're looking for a motion that we approve a letter then?
I believe so, yes.
I would like to make that motion then. So I move that the council approve a letter of support and authorize the Town of Coaldale's application under the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund for the South Coaldale Regional Stormwater Management Facility project on behalf of the Town of Coaldale, Lethbridge County, and the St. Mary's River Irrigation District.
Thank you, John. John has moved the recommendation. Is there any further discussion? The motion is that council approve a letter of support and authorize the Town of Coaldale's application under the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund for the South Coaldale Regional Stormwater Management Facility project on behalf of the Town of Coaldale, Lethbridge County, and the St. Mary River Irrigation District. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried.
Thank you, council.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks, Devin. We can move down. Correspondence. We have 5 pieces of correspondence before us. I apologize. I usually print them out and have them before me, but I did not. Our first one is the Eventide correspondence item 1, Eventide home barbecue and open house invitation. So before you have an invitation delivered to Lethbridge County Council on behalf of the board and management of Eventide Home. Invite you to join us for a barbecue lunch and open house to view and appreciate our home's completion. We have been progressing on our building project for the last years and are ready to transition our care home to operation. So that is our first piece of correspondence. If you'd like to deal with them individually, or if you would not like to deal with them, I'll leave that up to council how you'd like to proceed. But I will just move down through the list. Item 2, Town of Coaldale Civic Square Grand Opening Invitation. This is from Mayor Jack Van Ryan. On behalf of Coaldale Town Council, I am pleased to invite you to the grand opening of Coaldale's recently completed Civic Square building, which is scheduled to take place on Saturday, June 17th, 2023 from 10 till 4. There is a request to RSVP at your earliest convenience. Moving down again. Item 3, Minister of Municipal Affairs. This just pertains to our discussion at Spring RMA that we were able to have with Minister Schulz. Just acknowledges what we talked about in meeting with her. We shared with her our Saracon report that was completed just prior to that. Yeah. She also notes that she was in receipt of our request for funding support for our waterline project, and also acknowledged our discussions around LGFF and our contention that intensity should be considered, not only the amount of miles or kilometers of roadway, but also the intensity at which those are used. Number 4, we have correspondence from Yellowhead County. This made news earlier, the 10th this was dated. Mayor Wade Williams brought this to our attention. It is time for all parties running in this upcoming election to band together, get a hold of Elections Alberta, and postpone the provincial election. The election is nothing but a distraction at this point. When we Albertans need every government official to roll up their sleeves and fight for the province, we don't need to have a province. Before we don't have a province to come back to. This obviously relates to the wildfire situation in central and northern Alberta, and the concerns that some municipalities have around the timing of the election and the disaster that is currently taking place. Item 5, Town of Coaldale and Tourism Lethbridge promoting tourism in Southern Alberta networking event. June 2nd, 2023. You have a small invitation in front of you. It looks like there's a guest, tourism and downtown expert. Again, this event will be held on June 2nd, 2023 at the Civic Square in Coaldale. Is there anything that you would like to discuss or pull out of those correspondence items? John?
I think it would probably just be appropriate to move that any of the council members that wanted to attend any of these functions be allowed to do so.
Okay.
Can we say encouraged?
Huh?
Can we say encouraged?
Encouraged to do so? I can change that to encouraged to do so.
You're willing to make that motion, John?
Yes.
Could you state that for me? Sorry, I'm not that.
I'd like to move that any council member that wish to attend any of the events that we have received a invitation to be encouraged to do so.
Thank you, John. Any discussion on that? Not, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Candace, if there's any time-sensitive ones that need to be looked at sooner rather than later, could we get those invitations out to council? Thank you. And with that, we can move down to item I. Oh, sorry, Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question on the Yellowhead County. It doesn't specifically say it, but you have to write a letter if you're a supporter of what he's asking. It doesn't go to the government, it goes to the chief electoral officer, does it not? It's a very separate process.
I would assume so, yeah.
So I don't know whether there's any thought of doing that or not doing that.
Any thoughts on that? Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. At this point, personally, I don't think, yes, they're going through a disaster of epic proportions in those areas, and it is very unfortunate, the timing. But also an election needs to be dealt with, even with the concerns in our area. We need to move forward and have it done so we can get back to work. Currently, MLAs are not working, and they are campaigning, and need to get this government back working, even for our water concerns. So I will not be supporting delaying it.
Thanks, Eric. Anything else on that? Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would, given the timing of the letter and when it actually came out, things are starting to subside up in the north as well. So it's, you know, I appreciate that what they're going through, and having gone through a similar situation myself, it's, but I would concur that I see no appetite on myself to write Elections Alberta and request a delay.
Thanks, John. Anything further on the correspondence items? Thank you. Item I, County Council and Committee Updates. Lethbridge County Council Attendance Update, April 2023. Start with Division 1. Councillor Lauren Hickey. Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, on April 5th, they attended the FCSS meeting and the All Councils meeting. At the All Councils meeting, they had some clients and step up and talk about what they had gone through and how their programs were working for them and how they've been helping them out. That was a very interesting session. They do a lot of very valuable work for community members who just need a helping hand and a hand up, not a hand out. They just need some help. And the FCSS has really stepped up and did an excellent job. Other than that, pretty much the same as everybody else for candidate interviews, and went to the McCain's open house. That was kind of interesting. And that's about it. All the rest was just, oh, and the Picture Butte council meeting where they greeted, or had everybody meet from everybody north of the river. I would like to see everybody included, including the town of Coaldale, in future meetings. And as much as it was a great night, I don't think it was the appropriate venue to have it at, because when you have other people sitting in the same room as you and you want to talk about issues, I don't think it's quite the right place to have it. But I think it was a great idea, and it should continue to do it. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Good class.
Yeah, a question for you, Lauren. On the Green Acres board meeting, has there been any mention of any progress in Miami and Picture Butte?
So, I'm still waiting for the provincial government to respond. There have been, of course, right now, they can't get any response from anybody there. But no, nothing, unfortunately.
Thanks, Lauren.
If I could
Yeah,
just
go ahead.
expand maybe on that just a little bit. The situation is that the actual lodge itself is owned by the provincial government, and the other part of the building is owned by Green Acres. And Green Acres wants to buy the provincial side so they can update it and renovate it, but there's been no movement whatsoever from the government. Yeah.
Thanks, Lauren. Division 2, I attended the April 5th FCSS All Councils meeting. I would just echo what Lauren said. It was pretty eye-opening, you know, some of the stories that were told there, and just echo what Lauren said, some tremendous work being done by FCSS. They have a tremendous team there. You know, kudos to Zach and everyone there for everything they do. April 11th, I was invited to meet with the president of Lethbridge College, Brad Donaldson. The college is undertaking their Road to Ready. So what they're doing is engaging community leaders, business leaders, and people throughout the community just about what they see as being important, what role the college plays in that moving forward. So it was nice. I've had the opportunity to meet with Brad on Team Lethbridge and a couple other events. So, looking forward to building that relationship, and shared with him our interest at the county to work closer with the college, and, first off, arrange a meet and greet or a tour of the college with council, and get council on the ground there. They have a lot going on that pertains to what we're doing here at the county, and just look forward to building that relationship. Really appreciative to be included in that discussion. April 17th, the Southern Regional Drainage Committee meeting and governance meeting. As the county's appointee to the Southern Regional Drainage Committee, we've obviously, crossed a number of large hurdles, getting to where we are with the construction on the Horsefly Spillway project. Still a lot of work to do, and a number of projects coming up. I maybe just touch on that governance meeting part. There was a firm hired to work with the committee members being the elected officials, as well as the technical committee, which Devin's a part of. We had a first brainstorming session on moving forward, how we'd like to see that committee. Right now, a lot of that work is happening off the desks of people at the MD of Tabor. Eventually, we'd like to see it stand on its own and have its own governance structure, and perhaps the ability to apply for funding and maybe lead some of those projects moving forward. That project is ongoing. We have another meeting coming up in June, I believe, as part of Devin's role in that. I think you've had some meetings as well, Devin, since then, a follow-up meeting. So yeah, just trying to brainstorm and bring everybody on board. I believe we're meeting in Cypress County in June to have our next meeting, just to continue those discussions and see where we go from here. And I also attended the McCain Open House. They had some picture boards up, had some local residents, neighbors, some of the new growers there, a lot of staff from McCain. It was nice of them to open up, to the community, answer any questions, concerns that people might have, share some renderings of what the facility might look like. Obviously, a lot of anticipation, and just looking forward to seeing that project continue to progress. Move down, Division 3, Councillor Mark Sayers. Mark?
Thanks, Reeve Campbell. Go through the month here. One of the highlights, the Regional Water Commission meeting, was notified that we had a leak, and so that time they were just getting ready to shut down and go in and open, and they found it was a valve that was reported back to us. So that was been replaced. So they worked hard and fast and got it done with a minimal impact to the community and to our end users. So a big shout out and a thanks to all the staff that looked after that. South Grove had a quarterly meeting, and I asked the question about where the solar project was. So that piece is we going to the next meeting, where the board will decide whether they're going to go ahead with the project or not. The Warner and Coots sites, another group has moved in there, so now they could still rely on the Monarch site, but that would take up a big chunk of their dollars to make that happen. So they're still waiting on some grant funding to come through. They're pretty sure they could get it. However, it's still up in the air. So the next quarterly meeting, there'll be a discussion or decision by the board whether to go ahead with the project or not. So. And again, the council meet and greet hosted at Pitcher Butte. That was a great event to get to know some of the councillors. I agree with Lauren, it was difficult. There was that group of ladies in the corner there, so it would have been a nice room if we had it ourselves. But it was a great event. I really enjoyed it. Got to know a few more councillors from the other municipalities, and I look forward to attending some other similar events just as we connect with all our other counterparts. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Division 4, Deputy Reeve John Kurbis. John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just highlights on my month were both the Water Commission and Waste Commission meetings, which were more just our regular housekeeping items. Audit Committee meeting, I appreciate the time that our Finance Department puts into making sure that our books are in order and that the Audit Committee meetings go very smoothly, so that's very much appreciated. In terms of the meet and greet in Pitcher Butte, again, I would concur, a great event, and wonderful to sit down and, just talk socially with our smaller urbans and our counterparts in other municipalities, and I think it's something that we should definitely be looking at doing a lot more of. On April 28th, I also took a tour and attended the grand opening for the Lethbridge Recovery Center, which is just on the edge of the county on the east side. Wonderful facility that the province managed to put up in less than a year, and hopefully it will offer some solace and relief to anybody that is suffering with drug addictions and are looking for help. It's going to open up an additional 50 beds in the region, and appreciating that that's not as much of a problem with us in the county, but certainly with the city and our partners here, it is an issue, and it's a facility that is definitely needed. And lastly, we had a fairly heavy lifting month with the selection process with the new CAO, and I just wanted to put a shout out to all of our councillors, but especially our Reeve, Tori, in terms of all the heavy lifting that had to be done on that, and it is a process, and there's a lot of extra time and effort that is required, specifically by Tori, and an appreciation for that, and recognition of the time and effort put in for that.
Thank you, John. Division 5, Councillor Eric Van Essen. Eric?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. April 11th, Highway 3 Twinning Development Association Annual General Meeting. It was kind of interesting. Really, the intent of the committee was to work on Highway 3 getting twinned, and with the formal announcement and commitment to get it twinned, it was a little bit of what is the purpose and the intent of the committee going forward, and actually sent back the executives to pretty much look at what to do next. So it was interesting, and it's we'll see where that develops up from there. CAO interviews, very interesting, and also yeah, really enjoyed the process, and fairly confident on our final resolution. So I'm hopeful for that. Meet and greet was good. Like to see something at some point, maybe if the county can host something, and in my opinion, a little bit more structured than open. Yeah, that was the basis of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
I have a question.
Go ahead, John.
Thanks. In terms of the Highway 3 twinning, do you foresee them moving forward and just continuing putting pressure on Focus to make sure the timelines are in, or is...
Thank you, Councillor Kurbis. The Alberta Transportation was there and quite frankly said, you got your commitment, we're going to work on what's quick and easy, and in the meantime, while engineering for the more difficult parts get done, and you can have priorities, but really they're going to mean nothing to us. So fairly direct. Figure out what you want to do, but that was it.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, John. Division 6, Councillor Klaus Vanderveen.
Yeah, I have nothing more to report than is on there. I guess it was short, but through circumstances, I guess I couldn't do any more.
Elaborate on your holidays.
You had a great vacation.
Thanks, Klaus. Division 7, Councillor Morris Eenstra. Morris.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at classes on here, that would be a lot easier. Yeah, thank you. Next Wisconsin Council meeting on April 7th, April the 11th meeting with the Honorable Thomas, and April the 18th, and April the 19th, CEO, and April the 27th, we have CEO also, and the 20th, Council, and we agreed to meet with Pittsfield. It was, yeah, probably a good idea. However, they gotta change a little bit how we're gonna meet. Like, I would like to see a guy
Thanks, Morris. Thank you, everyone, for your reports. Maybe just a couple of things that came out of that I didn't acknowledge off the start of the meeting. Obviously, a pretty bad situation happening in central northern Alberta, ongoing right now, as Councillor Kurbis alluded to. Deputy Reeve Kurbis alluded to. Hopefully, conditions are starting to improve, but I think we kind of live in a bit of a bubble. Until a few days ago, when that smoke rolled in, it really started to hit home what was happening and just how bad the situation was, the gravity of the situation. So I just want to acknowledge that. I'm not a particularly big person on the thoughts and prayers. I don't know how much that weight that actually holds, but I would like to acknowledge what's going on, acknowledge what those people are going through, and acknowledge the work that's happening throughout the province, the country, and from abroad to try and help aid in that situation. And that comes right down to our local community here. Acknowledge that we at the county have some staff that have made their way north to help in that. Acknowledge them for their role in that. Also, there's been apparatus deployed from the region, from our partner municipalities to go and help. Acknowledge the people and the equipment that has gone north, and just everyone that's doing what they can to help with that. I know times are tough, and I think as a society maybe it's a little challenging. We're probably more divided than ever, but I'm glad to see that we're able to come together in times of need, and that we're showing our true colors as a province. And acknowledge John's tie, that beautiful Alberta tartan on there.
I wore that purposely for that reason.
Very nice. And secondly, it was acknowledged in our updates. It was announced earlier last week that the county council had selected a new CAO for Lethbridge County. The county would like to, obviously I'd like to say formally welcome Cole Beck to the county. Cole's first day will be June 12th at the county. I'd like to thank all of council for the work that went into that process. It was a lot of heavy lifting starting in January to get us to where we are today. Also like to acknowledge Richardson Executive Search for the work they did with us. A big thanks to Sandy and Jesse and their whole team, Rob Boyd, and for what they did. And I'd like to, again, I've said it a few times now, but just acknowledge the role that Larry has played in stepping up to be our interim CAO, and obviously everyone else, Hillary for stepping up, all of our senior staff, everybody at the county for stepping up during this time. I know it's probably been a bit challenging at times, just not having that go-to person that you'd normally expect, but having Larry in the role has been tremendous. I know he's done a tremendous job for us, has just held the line and been terrific, so thank you, Larry. Thank you, Candace, for helping to fill that void as well without having that person there. And just, as it was said, looking forward to next steps and getting Cole here, getting him acclimatized, and essentially moving forward. So with that, just a big thank you to everyone. We do have a 10 o'clock public hearing, so why don't we recess our meeting for a few minutes? And I believe that our 11 o'clock was endeavoring to be here a little sooner if possible, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So why don't we take a short recess until 10 o'clock. Thank you. Good, all right. We'll call the meeting back to order at 10:02 a.m. this morning. Moving in our agendas to item E, public hearings. We have a 10 o'clock public hearing. So with that, I would recess the regular meeting. We are here today to hold the public hearing for Bylaw 23-013, Advertising Bylaw. I'd ask for a motion to open the public hearing. John? John has moved to open the public hearing for Bylaw 23-013, the Advertising Bylaw. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. The public hearing is being held pursuant to the Municipal Government Act as amended. The public hearing is being live streamed via the county's YouTube page. The public hearing for Bylaw 23-013 is now officially open. I will now ask the Supervisor of Planning and Development review the nature of the hearing and provide an overview of what is being proposed. With that, I will throw to you, Hillary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council. Maddie sends her regards. She's still up, I believe, in Drayton Valley or coming on her way back down today. So I'm doing this on her behalf, so hopefully I can do her justice. So with regards to this particular bylaw, first reading of the bylaw was held on April the 6th, 2023. And as per the Municipal Government Act, this particular type of bylaw did require specifically a public hearing to allow the public the opportunity to provide comments with regards to the implementation of an advertising bylaw that would allow for different means of notification to our residents with regards to any matters that require a public hearing, such as land use bylaws, area structure plans, and even our other bylaws that we have, to go beyond what is required in the Municipal Government Act, which to date is just either a letter to the affected landowners or a newspaper ad being put out for 2 consecutive weeks. So with that, currently that's what the county does with regards to advertising or notifying adjacent landowners or residents or adjacent landowners to a particular planning project as to what's going on in their neighborhood. We do also use the website, and you've probably, as council, have seen, we use our website, our e-news, our social media, newsletters, and notice boards extensively, in addition to those the base requirements in order to get the message out there. We also have our What's Happening Lethbridge County webpage specifically for projects in the county. Many other municipalities in the province have established this type of advertising bylaw in recent years, specifically due to some challenges that were met during the pandemic, because there is a lack of ways to communicate well with people if you couldn't necessarily always meet in person, or maybe the newspapers weren't running, stuff like that. So there's also a difference in preference of how people have seen how they want to communicate with the county. Often we will get, well, can't I just get an email? Can I be notified in another way? Specifically, some of those rural residents who may not always go to their mailbox, maybe they go only once or twice, in a month, and so this can allow for an opportunity to collect more information, send out information in a better way. We will not change, or we don't anticipate changing, how we advertise currently. The Sunny South News is still a vital part of how we communicate to our residences. In addition, sending out adjacent landowner notices from the planning and development perspective is very important, just so that we are targeting those people who are impacted specifically on a project. So with that, we would recommend that this particular bylaw be read a second and third time to allow for us to provide those means to communicate with our residents in different ways. And if there is, say, a postal strike, or if there was an interruption in the newspaper or something like that, that we still have the means to get our information out to our residences in the most effective way possible. And that is the report as it stands. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go through this, but I realize there's no one here. Presentations to council. We'll start with the applicant. Has made the submission. That's somewhat irrelevant. After each speaker, members of council will be permitted to ask questions of the presenter, clarify any details. No debating or questions from the floor will be allowed. With that, I would ask if there's anyone wishing to speak to the proposed bylaw. Is there anyone wishing to speak to the proposed bylaw? And I'll ask a third time, is there anyone wishing to speak to the proposed bylaw? Seeing none, I would ask for a motion to close the public hearing. Lauren?
So moved. I would make a motion to close bylaw 23-013 public hearing.
Thank you, Lauren. Lauren, Lauren has moved to close the public hearing for bylaw 23-013, advertising bylaw. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We can now resume our public meeting at 10:08 a.m. this morning. I would open it up to council. How would you like to? Sorry, John.
Yeah, I'd like to move that bylaw 23-013, advertising bylaw, be read a second time.
Thank you, John. John has moved the recommendation that bylaw 23-013, advertising bylaw, be read a second time. Is there any discussion? Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Currently, without this bylaw, are we not allowed to use the internet as one of our forms of bringing our information out there?
Thank you, through the chair to Councillor Van Essen. Right now, we do put it on there, obviously, but it wouldn't be legally if that was the only way we did it. So say that something happened to the paper, something happened, they couldn't run for a week or two, and that's exactly when we were going to have a hearing or something. We would have to postpone and until such time that we could send out those notices or have it advertised in the paper. So right now it's a mechanism we use, but it's not the, I guess, under the provincial eyes, the legal mechanism that we can use to effectively advertise or notify.
So with that in mind, is there a legal online way that under this newspaper or this site, as long as you use those, then you're now covered, then we're obeying by the MGA?
No, currently you can only use those two methods unless you have this advertising bylaw in place.
Okay, and then at that point, as long as it hits social media and a few things, then that's considered published?
Yeah, so if we had, say, collected email addresses and information, we could send it to them that way. Say if there is a postal strike, that would be a mechanism to send out information. You could also, which we don't do currently, we don't collect that information. And so that's something that we could consider with that. With regards to the newspaper, because it's, I think I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
No, that's okay. My concern, I guess, is that as long as we're still going to use every avenue available, and that sometime down the road we don't say, oh, it's costing us so much to be in the newspaper.
Right,
So,
okay.
for our residents who don't care to be involved with an online presence, or care to, some of them just don't have the aptitude to be on it.
Mhm.
So that's my only concern, that as long as that it's in there that we're going to use every available formal mechanism.
Yes, that would be the intent, is that we're just opening it up to have that opportunity to do more and meet specific people's preferences. So it's, say, instead of sending a letter in the mail, somebody says, just send me an email. We could do that in a manner that meets the bylaw. So we would, the Sunny South News is really important in terms of some of our residences and how they get information. Others, not so much, obviously. But we understand that we have a variety of residents in the county, and that is a very key part of getting our message out there. So we would keep doing that, and we wouldn't just stop that for any particular reason.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Hillary. John has moved the recommendation that bylaw 23-013, advertising bylaw, be read a second time. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Excuse me. Opposed? That is carried. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that bylaw 23-013, advertising bylaw, be read a third time.
Thank you, Mark. Mark has moved that bylaw 23-013, advertising bylaw, be read a third time. Is there any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you, Hillary.
Thank you.
All we have left remaining on our agenda is our 11 a.m. delegation. As I noted, I believe they were endeavoring to be here a little sooner, but for the time being, we could recess for the time being, and we will resume once our delegation arrives. Go ahead, Lauren.
Let's do our little committee meeting over there.
Okay, we'll recess our regular meeting then at 10:12. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We'll call our meeting back to order at 10:20 this morning. If we move in our agendas, item F, delegations. We had an 11 o'clock delegation. I'd just like to acknowledge and thank our delegation for coming in a little bit earlier this morning. With that, I would throw to our interim CAO, Larry Randall. Larry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Council and everyone. So we have today Mr. Ken Van Rootselaar, who's here. He is a property owner, I believe a joint property owner of a residential property just on the periphery of the town of Colehurst, located in Lethbridge County. And sometime last year, the house burned down. I believe it was a vacant house, but in any event was burned down. And as far as I know, to this point, the determination has been that it was very likely an arson situation. And Mr. Van Rootselaar is here today to just explain some of the details. The response bill that he has received, a response invoice from Lethbridge County, is around $20,000. And he'd just like to speak to council about that. And I do apologize if our fire services manager, Byron Fraser, were here. He would have a little more detail for you at this time than I do. But given, again, as acknowledged earlier in our meeting, he's away helping with the fire response in the north central part of the province. But in any event, if council chooses to go this route, we could certainly, upon his return, find out more detail and bring a report back to council and make sure you have full details before you kind of try to make any decision or give any further direction to administration. So if that's fine, then Mr. Chairman, I would just turn it back to you. And I think Mr. Van Rootselaar would like to just make a statement, kind of read something he's prepared and perhaps answer any questions that you may have of him. And
thank you, Larry.
go from there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, please come on up if you like. You're welcome.
Good morning.
Morning. Morning, everyone.
Would you mind just, if you
Prefer I
sit?
sit?
Then
Yeah,
you're just
okay.
closer to the mic if that's
Either
possible.
one, doesn't matter, or?
It doesn't matter.
Either one.
Either one.
Just make sure that
Thank you.
the mic is a little bit close to you, otherwise the voices don't project sometimes very well, and we're live streamed as well, so
Oh.
anyone out in
Oh.
computer land may not be able to hear what's being spoken. So,
Okay.
right, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. So my name is Ken Van Rootselaar, and this is my wife, Carol. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to everyone today. My siblings and I are asking for some help regarding the fire bill resulting from an arson on my mom's acreage on August 16th of 22. Well, my two brothers and sister and I acknowledge that due to the county policy and the inability to arrest anyone for the arson, we are responsible for this fire bill of approximately $20,000. However, we hope that given our circumstances, you would be willing to work with us to make the payment of this bill easier for our family to manage. A little history. In September of 2019, my mom and dad were living in the second house on the property, and which had been their home for 60 years. Dad had a stroke on September 30th and passed away a week later. At that time, we realized that my mom's dementia was much further progressed than we kind of thought. Dad was kind of covering for her. And it fell upon my two brothers and my sister and myself to care for my mom. She had to be at home for a period of time. She became very anxious and agitated when she was anywhere else. And although we did receive help from AHS home care during the days, on weekdays, the four of us took turns looking after her at evenings, overnights, and weekends for 4 months until appropriate placement at a care facility opened up for her. At that same time, we learned that my dad did not have a will, and so there was a lot of paperwork to be done. We needed to get guardianship and trusteeship for my mom and try to sort out all the legal issues with ownership of this property. By February 22nd, or 2022, we had this process completed to the point where we are able to put up the property for sale. It was listed with a real estate agent for 6 months, but did not sell. We did take turns keeping an eye on the property, and my brother Marvin cut the grass and checked up on things. Well, we were aware that there had been individuals on the property and things were disappearing from the small house. Marvin put up a no trespassing sign and tried to block entrance to the small house. Unfortunately, this was not enough because there was a fire on August 16th, 2022, and it was determined to be arson. The police have not arrested anyone in connection to the fire at this point. We have no way of knowing who is responsible. My sister Marlene had met with Byron Fraser in regards to this spill and circumstances surrounding the fire. He had advised that he would forward our concerns, but the result was that the bill would stand and would start incurring interest as of March 23rd. So while insurance would typically be able to help with at least part of this bill, my dad has never, as far as I know, carried property insurance. And in fact, when we asked about getting insurance after his death, we were told that no company would insure a vacant property like this. Yeah, I could add to that Dad had actually used it as a rental property like while he was alive, and probably had been vacant for maybe 3 years before this incident, just so he kind of have a little. So it actually was my grandpa's house is what it was. So originally, right, my grandfather and grandmother lived in that house, and my parents lived in the main house. Going forward, yeah, we acknowledge that due to the County of Lethbridge policy, we are responsible for this bill and the mess created by the fire, even though it was caused by arson. We did comply with the county requirement to have the building remains removed and cleared, and the cost for this was $5,000, and there was enough money in Mom's account to cover this, but my mom requires money every month to cover her care at Good Samaritans, as her government benefits don't cover it all. We also need to cover taxes, utilities, etc. at the acreage that she still owns. We are in the process of trying to sell the property privately at this time, but there has been no real interest yet. Without the sale of the property, our dad's estate does not have enough money to pay for the fire bill all at once, while still having enough money to cover the payments for the care of our mom. Because of our situation, we are hoping that we could work out a plan with the county to make payments towards the bill over 4 or 5 years, and hopefully make those payments without interest. If the property sells, we would use those proceeds to pay the amount of the bill in full once those funds are available. However, until then, the 4 of us will have to come up with the money for this bill, as the money left over for our mom does not have enough to pay this bill while still paying for her care. While the 4 of us could afford scheduled payments, coming up with the entire amount would be a hardship for each of our 4 families. We appreciated the quick and professional response of the county fire response team, and we completely understand why this bill must be paid. All we ask is for your support in making a plan that would work for us and the county so that our mom can be cared for, and so that myself and my brothers and sister are not left in financial hardship due to the crime of another person. I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today and for your consideration in this matter. So, yeah. So yeah, kind of what we're asking is if we could get a yearly payment option, and preferably with no interest accrued, if possible. So that's something that we could probably manage as a family. So.
Thank you very much for coming in today and for sharing your story with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe just a second, in case there's any questions. Are there any questions from council at this time? Okay, sorry.
No. I was going to ask you, so everybody's had any questions, by all means. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
How would,
I'm just gonna grab the gentleman's phone number. We only have an email for him because he called into us.
Okay.
Excuse me, please.
Yep. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would say in terms of requests for consideration on relief from a fire bill, this is the most reasonable one that's been presented to us. And I would have an appetite to suspend interest and give them time to pay this with the condition that if the property is sold, that the bill be paid.
Okay. Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Kurbis. I think it's, in a case like this, and for basically the ask that they've put forward is that if we just come up with a direct administration to come up with a payment plan and with no interest on the amount, and that they're willing to pay for it once the property's sold, then the balance is paid out. So, yeah, I sympathize with their situation. It's pretty tragic. So I think this is something the least that we could do as a county.
Thanks, Mark. Morris and then Eric.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly agree with Councilor Kurbis on that to go ahead maybe with what he suggested on that.
Okay. Eric?
Yeah, thank you. I could sympathize with it. I'd like to see it shortened up though. A 4 or 5 year loan on 20,000 is, I don't know all the circumstances around it, but I think 3 year is already cuts that down into quite small bites. So that's what I would like to see is a 3 year payment plan drafted for the applicant, I guess, and with the condition that upon sale of property, it's paid out in full.
Are you willing to make that motion, then, Eric?
Okay, I'll make that as a motion.
Okay. Go ahead,
I
John.
request a friendly amendment and a suspension of interest.
Oh, sure. Suspension of interest. Yes.
You're willing to?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Is there any further discussion? Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
I was just going to say, the other piece is that it's paid in full upon sale of the property, so I didn't, like the 3 or 4 years, I think they were looking at a 4 or 5 year period to shorten the amount up if they're breaking that $20,000 into pieces, if they can only afford $5,000 a year between the 4 of them. I think that's what I took away from that, that's what they're looking at. So I wouldn't have a problem with a 4 year instead of a 3, but.
Eric has made a motion.
Yeah,
I'd leave it.
you want it to drag out.
Go ahead, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. So fire service fees can be added to a tax roll for the Municipal Government Act. So we could add those costs to the tax roll, so they would be paid with the sale, if tax certificate, but it would be on the tax roll, and just not apply the penalty to that portion of those taxes, if that's an option as well. That way, there is, I don't know if I say more assurance that it will get paid upon a sale.
But that would be a lump sum then, Jen. That would be the entire amount.
Yeah, we could put the entire amount on there. And
Property
then,
sells for that, right?
just not apply the penalty to that portion.
Go ahead, John.
Are there any unintended consequences on that in the sense of them being in arrears on their taxes? Or is there a mechanism in place to put a note on there that there is a payment plan in place to take care of this arrears without them having any other undue consequences as a result of it?
It'd be similar to entering into a tax payment agreement. It would just be, slightly different circumstances. So the current taxes have to remain paid in full in a tax payment agreement, or penalty will apply. So I don't know the tax roll on that particular property. I was just throwing it out as another option, as an insurance that it would get paid in a specific amount of time.
John?
I was just gonna say, that sounds like the most reasonable mechanism to actually put this into place.
Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm willing to just direct administration to put them into a payment plan with no interest as administration sees fit. Start over.
Yeah.
Is that agreed?
You're withdrawing your motion?
Amending it to direct administration to supply a payment plan as administration sees fit, with no interest.
Okay. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Larry.
Sorry, not to muddy the waters, it looks
Yeah.
like maybe council's close to a decision, but I'm just wondering if there could be a hybrid of that, because with it being on the title or on the tax roll, that absolutely assures, not that we have any reason to distrust these folks that they would pay it off in full once the property sells, but that would provide, absolute assurance to the county that that would be paid off in full. So my thought would be,
Well, and we could have we do have the opportunity, if we wanted to have this brought back, if we want to have something drafted and brought back for council's consideration, that is an
Yeah,
opportunity as well.
couple options or something.
Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think our Director of Finance can handle it. She knows what our intent is.
Okay. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think that the motion presented actually doesn't preclude that. It leaves it up to administration what best way to do that to protect the interests of the county, so.
Do you feel comfortable with that, Jen? Okay.
Just if there is a time frame of 3 years, or if you wanted to that, and I can ensure that it's included as per council.
Yeah, not to exceed 3 years.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead, Klaus.
So, after the 3 years, if it's not paid, do we take ownership of the parcel?
Then it goes on tax roll, and for tax roll,
Yeah.
it goes to.
It's already on the tax.
What I'll do probably is just speak with the individuals and see what we can, maybe they have a lump sum payment of planning to make now, I'm not sure. But once it's on the tax roll, it would just mean that they would start accruing penalties after that date on the outstanding balance.
Okay. Anything further? So Eric has made that motion to direct administrate. I'll let you, Eric, if you'd like to.
Direct administration to put the applicant into a payment plan as administration sees fit with no interest and not to exceed a 3-year term.
Okay. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. And one more item, I believe, Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to direct administration to draft a letter under the Reeve signature to Minister Nate Horner of Alberta Agriculture and Irrigation and MLA Nathan Newdorf. And the content of the letter is to urge those responsible to use whatever means necessary to resolve the water issue in the Alberta Agriculture and Irrigation main canal, as it so direly impacts our ratepayers. So that's the gist of it. The content of it can be massaged, but this is a dire situation. There's going to be massive implications, and as a county, I feel we can put extra pressure on there, whatever means necessary. And it's not just money; it is also the repercussions for feedstocks, for produce, even potatoes, and some of those things. We got plants in the area that need this product, and our crops are not getting the water required. So, thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Is there any further discussion on that? Go ahead, Glass.
Well, I'd like to agree with that, but maybe the wording should not put it on ratepayers. We should probably put it on the farming community.
Yes.
Yeah, because that would speak more directly to the Minister of Agriculture, I think, than ratepayers.
Any further discussion on that?
Well, it should say LMID, because otherwise it might be looked at that all litigation is concerned.
Well, yes and no. The canal is not the LNIDs. It's Alberta Agriculture and Irrigation.
That supplies the element,
Yes.
not St. Mary's or anything like that.
Well, you could put it both.
But it's the main canal, and that is addressed, and that's what the emails come on, is the emails state that it is for Alberta Agriculture and Irrigation main canal repairs, and that's what I stated in my resolution, motion.
And the other thing that I would like to point out, the natives on the reserve been very cooperative, and they are trying to be very helpful with this situation, so that should be recognized. But there is some rumors going around, is the reserve holding things back? No, far from it. They are working very hard with the environment right now, trying to get the result.
Thanks, Morris. Anything, oh, sorry, go ahead, Klaus.
But I would like to go ahead with Eric proposed here, because I think that's probably the one that's gonna be the most effective in speaking to our Minister of Agriculture.
Okay. Eric has moved that administration draft a letter under the Reeve signature, communicating the dire consequences that are resulting from the canal failure and the need to use any and all means possible to make those repairs, get irrigation water flowing as soon as possible. Capture that, Eric?
Yes.
Okay. Candace? Yep. Go ahead, Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, I guess, could they respond back, because they can go up to 30 or 40 maybe at the present time, CMF or CFM?
Did not for sure.
But we need a full volume of water, not a,
We're just trying to get it repaired as fast as possible at whatever it takes to get it there. So.
well, I think it's important to stress that we need the maximum amount of water, not the half a.
Not just a trickle. Yeah.
A trickle.
That would be a repair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then it would take longer yet. That's the problem with that one.
Oh.
Well, they can do certain repairs down there while they have full water going through.
Okay, Eric?
I'm not saying it's gonna take any longer, it's just,
Eric has made a motion. If there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thanks, Eric. Thank you, everyone. I don't believe we have anything further. John?
yeah, motion to adjourn.
John has moved to adjourn.
I'll second that.
10:43 this morning. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, staff. Thank you, council.